The YouTuber voting contest explained. Welcome to the YouTuber voting contest, commonly known as the YVC. The YouTuber voting contest is a competition where YouTubers compete against one another using videos that they have selected as their official entries. At its core, the concept is relatively simple. YouTubers enter the competition. Their videos are presented to a jury and the public. Points are awarded, and those points determine who advances and ultimately who wins. However, there are several stages involved in getting from the initial entry all the way to the grand final. A contestant must first select a video to represent them. They may then enter the semi-final draw, unless they are an automatic qualifier. The contestants competing in the semi-finals then fight for qualification, while the automatic qualifiers already have their places in the grand final secured. Once the grand final takes place, the contestants receive points from both the jury and the public. These scores are combined, and the contestant with the highest overall score becomes the winner. This documentary will explain the entire core structure of the YouTuber voting contest, from the selection of a contestant's video all the way through to the final result. It will also explain the two semi-final system introduced in 2026, the automatic qualifier system, the jury scoring system, the public vote, how 0 points are possible, how large public scores can become, and how all of these elements ultimately determine the champion. The history of the contest. The YouTuber voting contest began in 2024. The original idea was to create a competition specifically centered around YouTubers and their video content. Rather than competing as countries, professional sports teams or other traditional competitors, the participants are individual YouTubers. Each contestant has a video representing them, and the competition determines which videos and contestants perform best according to the voting system. The contest returned for another edition in 2025. By 2026, the competition had reached its third edition and had developed a much more structured format. One of the biggest changes introduced in 2026 was the creation of two separate semi-finals. This meant that contestants would no longer simply compete within one large qualification stage. Instead, they would be divided between semi-final 1 and semi-final 2. The division between the semi-finals is not chosen by the contestants. Instead, the allocation is determined through a draw. There is also another important part of the qualification system, the automatic qualifiers. Before explaining how the semi-finals work, we first need to understand how contestants get their official entries. Video selection. Every contestant needs a video to represent them in the YouTuber voting contest. The video is an important part of the competition because the contestant is not simply entering their entire YouTube channel. They are entering one particular piece of content. There are two methods through which a contestant can select this video. These are internal video selection and voting video selection. Internal video selection. An internal video selection is when the YouTuber chooses their own entry. The contestant decides which eligible video they want to submit. There is no public selection process involved. The YouTuber can look through their available content and decide which video they believe is most appropriate for the competition. This could be a video that represents their channel particularly well, a video that they are proud of, or simply the video they believe has the strongest chance of performing well. The important point is that the final decision belongs to the contestant. Once the contestant has selected the video, it becomes their official entry. Voting video selection. The second method is a voting video selection. This works differently because the contestant allows their own public to choose the video that will represent them. The contestant can submit a maximum of 10 videos. These videos are then presented to the public for a selection vote. There are also restrictions on the videos themselves. Each submitted video must be at least 30 seconds long and no longer than 3 minutes. This means that a contestant cannot submit an extremely long video and expect the public to choose it. The selection is designed around relatively short entries. Once the videos have been submitted, the public can vote. Each voter can have a maximum of 10 votes. The public can therefore support the videos they believe should represent the contestant. Once the voting period ends, the votes are counted. The video that receives the most votes wins the selection. That video then becomes the contestant's official YVC entry. The difference between the two selection systems can therefore be summarized very simply. With an internal video selection, the YouTuber makes the decision. With a voting video selection, the YouTuber's public makes the decision. Both systems eventually lead to the same thing, 1. Official video representing the contestant. Why video selection matters. The video selection stage is important because the selected video is what the contestant ultimately presents to the competition. A contestant may have hundreds of videos on their YouTube channel, but only the selected entry represents them in the relevant stage of the contest. This means that choosing the right video can be an important strategic decision. A contestant using an internal selection has complete control over that decision. A contestant using a voting selection gives that decision to their viewers. Neither method automatically guarantees success. The selected video still has to compete against the other entries. Once the video selection process is complete, the contestants are ready for the next stage, the automatic qualifiers. Not every contestant has to go through the semi-finals. The YouTuber voting contest also has a system known as the automatic qualifier, or AQ. Automatic qualifiers are contestants who are guaranteed a place in the grand final without having to compete in either of the two semi-finals. This means that while the majority of contestants have to enter the semi-final draw and fight for qualification, an automatic qualifier already has their place in the grand final secured. The automatic qualifier system is designed to recognize specific contestants who have earned this status through the rules and history of the competition. In the 2026 contest, the automatic qualifiers were part of what was known as the Big Two. The Big Two consisted of Voxy and Amayo. These contestants did not need to compete in a semifinal in order to reach the grand final. Instead, their places were secured automatically. This creates an important distinction between the different types of contestants. A normal contestant has to enter the semi-final draw, compete in their assigned semi-final, receive enough points and qualify for the grand final. An automatic qualifier skips the qualification process. Their place in the grand final is already secured before the semifinals take place. The automatic qualifiers can therefore watch the semifinal qualification battles without having to worry about being eliminated themselves. However, being an automatic qualifier does not mean that the contestant automatically wins the grand final. It only guarantees their place in the grand final. Once the grand final begins, the automatic qualifiers compete alongside everyone else. Their videos are still judged. They are still eligible to receive jury points. They are still eligible to receive public votes. And their final position is still determined by their overall score. Therefore, an automatic qualifier has an advantage before the grand final, but does not receive an automatic advantage in the final scoring itself. An AQ can still finish near the bottom of the grand final if they receive very few points. Likewise, an automatic qualifier can perform extremely well and potentially win the entire competition. The system therefore separates qualification from winning. The automatic qualifier has already completed the qualification stage, but they still have to compete for the championship. The AQ system also means that the total number of grand finalists is not necessarily made up entirely of contestants who qualified through the semi-finals. Some places are reserved for contestants who already have automatic qualification. The remaining places are then fought for through the semi-final system. There are therefore two routes into the grand final. The first is through the semi-finals. The contestant enters the draw, competes in one of the two semi-finals, receives points and attempts to finish within the qualifying positions. The second route is automatic qualification. The contestant receives AQ status and therefore proceeds directly to the grand final. Once everyone reaches the grand final, however, the distinction becomes much less important. The automatic qualifiers and the semi-final qualifiers compete together. They are all eligible for the same jury and public voting systems. They all appear in the final rankings, and they all have the same objective: to finish with the highest overall score. The AQ system is therefore best understood as a guaranteed route into the grand final rather than a guaranteed route to victory. The semi-final draw. For the contestants who are not automatic qualifiers, the next stage is the semi-final draw. In 2026, the YouTuber voting contest introduced a two semi-final system. The participating contestants are divided into two semi-finals. However, contestants do not simply choose which semi-final they want to enter. Instead, the semi-final allocation is determined through a draw. The draw decides which contestants are placed into semi-final 1 and which contestants are placed into semi-final 2. This is important because it means contestants cannot simply arrange the semi-final lineup themselves. The draw establishes the competition. Once the draw has been completed, Each contestant knows which semifinal they will compete in. The two semifinals then operate separately. Contestants in semifinal 1 compete against the other contestants in semifinal 1. Contestants in semifinal 2 compete against the other contestants in semifinal 2. The results from each semifinal are then calculated independently. The purpose of the semifinals. The semifinals exist to determine which contestants will reach the grand final. Not every contestant can advance. The contestants must receive enough points to finish within the qualifying positions. This creates a qualification stage before the championship itself. A contestant can therefore be eliminated before reaching the grand final. Another contestant can perform strongly enough to qualify. This makes the semifinals one of the most important stages of the competition. In 2026, the eventual grand final consisted of 26 finalists. Those finalists came through the qualification process and were brought together for the final stage of the contest. Alongside the automatic qualifiers, the semifinal watch parties. The semifinals can also be followed through official watch party events. For the 2026 edition, the semifinal watch parties were located in Brisbane, Australia. This means that Brisbane served as the viewing location for the semi-final stages. The watch parties themselves do not determine the results. The actual results still come from the contest's voting system. The location simply provides a physical place for people to watch and follow the competition. The grand final had a different watch party location. The 2026 grand final watch party was located in Guam. Therefore, the main viewing locations for the 2026 contest were Brisbane, Australia for the semi-finals and Guam for the grand final. Again, these locations do not affect the scoring system. The contest can be understood separately from the physical locations where it is watched. The semi-final vote. Once the semi-final begins, the contestants' selected videos are evaluated. The contestants receive points through the relevant voting systems. The results are then used to rank the contestants within their semi-final. The contestants are not competing against the entire field at this point. They are competing against the other contestants who are assigned to their particular semi-final through the draw. This is why the draw is so important. It determines the group of contestants that each YouTuber must compete against before the grand final. Qualification. After the relevant votes have been counted, the semi-final results are calculated. The contestants are ranked according to their scores. Those who finish within the qualifying positions advance to the grand final. Those who do not meet the qualification requirements are eliminated from the main competition. This means that every point can potentially matter. A contestant could miss qualification by only a small margin. Another contestant could qualify comfortably. The important thing is that the semi-final ranking determines whether the contestant's journey continues. Once both semi-finals have finished, the grand final field is established. The jury. The YVC has two major sources of points. The first is the jury. The jury evaluates the contestants' videos and ranks its preferred entries. The jury does not simply give every contestant the same number of points. Instead, it ranks its preferred contestants and awards points according to the official scoring system. The available jury scores are 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, 6 points, 7 points, 8 points, 10 points, and 12 points. There are therefore 10 available scoring positions. The highest possible score from an individual jury ranking is 12 points. The contestant ranked first by that jury member receives 12 points. The second ranked contestant receives 10 points. The third receives 8 points. The fourth receives 7 points. The fifth receives 6 points. The sixth receives 5 points. The seventh receives 4 points. The eighth receives 3 points. The ninth receives 2 points. And the 10th receives 1 point. This creates the jury ranking system used to distribute points. Why are there number 9 or 11 points? An important detail of the scoring system is that 9-point and 11-point scores are not used. The sequence therefore goes from 8 points directly to 10 points, and from 10 points directly to 12 points. This is part of the established YVC jury scoring system. The highest possible individual jury score is 12. The lowest non-zero jury score is 1. However, there is another important possibility. A contestant can receive 0 points. 0 jury points. A contestant can receive 0 points from the jury. This does not mean that the jury has awarded them a negative score. It simply means that the contestant was not included among that jury's point scoring positions. For example, If a jury only awards points to its top-ranked entries, a contestant who does not appear in those positions receives no points from that jury. When the points from multiple juries are combined, contestants can therefore end up with different totals. Some may receive several high scores, others may receive only a few points, and some may receive no jury points at all. The public vote. The second major source of points is the public vote. The public vote is also sometimes referred to as the televote. The purpose of the public vote is to allow viewers to influence the result directly, instead of being selected jury members. Members of the public vote for the contestants they want to support. During the competition, public voting can be accessed through the relevant voting system. A QR code can be used to direct viewers to the voting form. The exact voting limits depend on the relevant stage. For the 2026 Grand Final, voters could cast up to 20 votes per Google account. The public vote is separate from the jury vote. This is an important distinction. The jury makes its own rankings. The public makes its own choices. The two results are then brought together. A contestant can therefore perform very differently with the jury and the public. A contestant might be highly ranked by the jury but receive relatively little public support. Another contestant might receive enormous public support but perform less strongly with a jury. The scale of the public vote. The public vote can sometimes produce very large scores. A good example from the 2026 contest is Dripping GT. Dripping GT received 383 points from the public. This demonstrates how powerful the public vote can be. A contestant receiving hundreds of public points can make a significant difference to their overall ranking. It is possible for a contestant to receive a large amount of public support and move significantly higher in the overall standings. This is one of the reasons why the public vote is such an important part of the competition. However, the opposite is also possible. A contestant can receive very few public points, and in some cases, a contestant can receive zero public points. Receiving 0 public points is possible under the YVC system. This simply means that the contestant did not receive enough public support to receive any points from the public allocation for that particular stage. An example from 2026 is Warren New. In the second semi-final, Warren New received 0 points from the public. That does not necessarily mean that the contestant received 0 from everyone. The jury and public results are separate. A contestant could receive points from the jury while receiving 0 from the public. Equally, a contestant could receive public points while receiving 0 from the jury. This separation is essential to understanding the YVC results. 0 from both. There is also an even more extreme possibility. A contestant can receive 0 points from both the jury and the public. This happened to Isaac Chris Peacock in the 2026 Grand Final. Isaac received 0 points from the jury and 0 points from the televote. Therefore, his combined score from those two components was 0 points. This demonstrates that receiving points is not guaranteed. A contestant can receive a huge public score. Another contestant can receive 0 public points. A contestant can receive strong jury support. Another contestant can receive 0 jury points. And, in the most extreme case, a contestant can receive 0 from both. This is an important part of understanding the scoring system because the YVC does not automatically give every contestant points simply for participating. The difference between jury and public voting. The jury and public votes serve different purposes. The jury provides a structured ranking from its selected members. The public provides a wider voting result from viewers. Both can produce very different outcomes. Imagine that a contestant receives 12 points from one jury. That demonstrates that the contestant was ranked first by that particular jury member. However, it does not automatically mean that the contestant will receive a large public vote. The public may have a completely different favorite. Similarly, a contestant could receive a relatively low jury score but receive an enormous public vote. Dripping GT's 383 public points in 2026 demonstrate how significant public support can become. The final result therefore cannot be predicted simply by looking at one voting component, the combined score. Once the jury and public votes have been counted, the scores are combined. This produces the contestant's overall score. The combined score determines the ranking. This means that both voting components can influence where a contestant finishes. A contestant might receive a strong jury score and a strong public score. Another contestant might receive a strong jury score but almost no public support. Another might receive very little jury support but a huge public vote. And another might receive 0 from both. The final ranking is determined by the combined total. This is why the final scoreboard can look very different from either the jury ranking or the public ranking on its own. The Grand Final. The Grand Final is the final competitive stage of the YouTuber voting contest. The contestants who successfully qualified through the semifinals are brought together alongside the automatic qualifiers. In 2026, there were 26 grand finalists. The finalists' selected videos are presented as part of the grand final. The jury evaluates the finalists. The public votes for the finalists. The jury scores and public scores are then combined. The contestants are ranked according to their final totals. The contestant at the top of the final scoreboard becomes the winner. The Grand Final Watch Party. The 2026 Grand Final Watch Party was located in Guam. This was different from the semi-final watch parties. The semi-final watch parties were located in Brisbane, Australia. Therefore, the 2026 viewing arrangement can be summarized as follows. The semi-finals were watched from Brisbane, Australia. The grand final was watched from Guam. These physical locations are separate from the competition's actual voting process. The contestants are not awarded points because of the watch party locations. The locations simply provide places where the respective stages can be watched. The final result. Once every relevant jury and public point has been counted, the final scoreboard is produced. The contestant with the highest overall score wins the competition. In the 2026 edition, Avidaya won the YouTuber voting contest with a total of 647 points. This means that after the relevant jury and public results had been combined, Avidaya finished above the other grand finalists. The winner is therefore determined by the final combined scoreboard rather than simply by one individual vote. The winner in the next edition, winning the YVC, also connects one edition to the next. Under the contest's format, the winner becomes the host of the following edition. After winning the 2026 contest, Avidaya is set to host the 2027 YouTuber voting contest. This gives the winner an additional role beyond simply receiving the championship title. The following edition can then build upon the previous one. The 2027 contest. The 2027 edition is planned to feature 41 participants. This represents another expansion of the competition. The basic structure remains centered around YouTubers, video entries, semi-finals, jury voting, public voting and the grand final. The contest can continue to develop its format over time, but these stages form the core of how the competition works. The entire process from start to finish. The entire YVC can now be explained from beginning to end. First, a YouTuber becomes a contestant. The contestant needs an official video. They can select that video themselves through an internal video selection. Alternatively, they can use a voting video selection. If they choose the voting video selection method, they can submit up to 10 videos. Each video must be between 30 seconds and 3 minutes long. The public can cast up to 10 votes in the selection. The video with the most votes becomes the contestant's official entry. Once all contestants have their entries, the qualification arrangements are determined. Automatic qualifiers already have their places in the grand final secured. The remaining contestants enter the semi-final draw. The contestants are randomly allocated between the two semi-finals. They do not simply choose which semi-final they want to enter. The draw determines their allocation. The contestants then compete within their assigned semi-finals. Points are awarded. The contestants are ranked. Those who qualify advance to the grand final. Those who do not qualify are eliminated from the main competition. The semi-final watch parties for the 2026 edition were located in Brisbane, Australia. After the semi-finals, the grand final field is established. The automatic qualifiers and successful semi-finalists then compete together. The jury ranks its preferred contestants. The available jury scores are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 and 12. The contestant ranked first by a jury member receives 12 points. The contestant ranked second receives 10. The third receives 8. The remaining available scores continue down to 1 point. Contestants outside the jury's scoring positions can receive 0 points from that jury. The public then votes. In the 2026 grand final, voters could cast up to 20 votes per Google account. The public result can range from no points at all to extremely large scores. Warren New is an example of a contestant receiving 0 public points in the second semi-final. Dripping GT is an example of a contestant receiving a very large public result. with 383 points from the public. Isaac Chris Peacock provides an example of an even more unusual outcome. In the 2026 Grand Final, Isaac received 0 points from both the jury and the televote. The jury and public results are then combined. The final scoreboard is produced. The contestant with the highest total becomes the champion. In 2026, that contestant was Avia, who finished with 647 points. The 2026 Grand Final watch party was located in Guam. Following the victory, Avia became the planned host of the 2027 edition. Why the system uses two voting components. The combination of jury and public voting is central to the YVC. If the contest relied entirely on the jury, the public would have no direct influence over the result. If it relied entirely on the public, there would be no separate jury perspective. Instead, the YVC uses both. The jury provides its rankings. The public provides its votes. The two results are combined. This creates a system in which a contestant needs to consider both aspects of the competition. The jury might prefer one type of content. The public might prefer another. There is therefore no requirement for the two voting groups to agree. This can lead to significant differences between the jury scoreboard, the public scoreboard and the final scoreboard. Understanding a score of 0. A score of 0 is important to understand because it does not necessarily mean the same thing in every situation. If a contestant receives 0 from the jury, it means that they did not receive any of the available points from that jury allocation. If a contestant receives 0 from the public, it means that they did not receive enough public support to receive points in that particular public allocation. If they receive 0 from both, they have received no points from either component. Warren New demonstrates the first situation involving the public, with 0 public points in the second semifinal. Isaac Chris Peacock demonstrates the most extreme version in the 2026 Grand Final, with 0 from both jury and public. Meanwhile, Dripping GT demonstrates the opposite end of the scale, with 383 public points. These examples show the enormous range that can exist between contestants. One contestant can receive 0, another can receive hundreds. The scoring system therefore allows the final results to reflect significant differences in jury and public support. Understanding the jury scores. The jury scoring system is also important to understand. There are 10 scoring positions. The available scores are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 and 12. The jump from 8 to 10 and then from 10 to 12 means that the highest ranked contestants receive significantly more points than those lower down the ranking. A contestant receiving 12 points has been placed first by that jury member. A contestant receiving 10 has been placed second. A contestant receiving 8 has been placed third. This means that the top of the jury ranking carries considerably more weight than the lower positions. The points from every relevant jury member are then combined. This produces the overall jury score for each contestant. The public result is calculated separately. Both are eventually combined into the final score. The importance of the semifinal draw. The introduction of the two semifinals in 2026 also means that the draw becomes an important part of the competition. The contestants cannot simply select their opponents. Instead, the draw determines their semifinal allocation. This creates two separate qualification competitions. A contestant might be placed in semifinal 1, another might be placed in semifinal 2. They must then compete against the contestants assigned to that same semifinal. The draw therefore happens before the competition reaches the actual voting stage. It determines the competitive environment in which each contestant will attempt to qualify. Automatic qualifiers do not need to participate in this draw because their grand final places have already been secured. Once the semifinal results are complete, the contestants who qualify move forward. The grand final then brings the successful contestants together with the automatic qualifiers. What makes the grand final different? The grand final is different from the semifinals because it is the final opportunity for contestants to compete for the championship. In a semifinal, the objective is qualification. In the grand final, the objective is winning. A contestant who finishes first in a semifinal does not automatically win the entire contest. They still have to compete in the grand final. Likewise, a contestant who barely qualifies can still potentially finish extremely highly in the grand final. An automatic qualifier also does not automatically win. They have simply skipped the semifinal qualification stage. Once the grand final begins, Everyone is competing for the same championship. The semi-final therefore determines who gets the opportunity to compete for the championship. The grand final determines who actually wins it. The 2026 format in simple terms. The 2026 edition can therefore be reduced to several major stages. Contestants first selected their videos. They could use an internal video selection or a voting video selection. A voting video selection could contain up to 10 videos. The videos had to be between 30 seconds and 3 minutes. The public could cast up to 10 votes. The winning video became the official entry. Certain contestants received automatic qualifier status and therefore proceeded directly to the grand final. The remaining contestants entered the semi-final draw. They were divided into 2 semi-finals. They competed within those semi-finals. The contestants received points. The rankings determined who qualified. The successful contestants joined the automatic qualifiers in the grand final. In 2026, there were 26 grand finalists. The jury then ranked contestants using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 and 12 points. The public also voted. Some contestants received large public scores. Dripping GT received 383 public points. Some contestants received 0 public points. Warren New received 0 public points in the second semi-final. Some contestants could receive 0 jury points. And in the 2026 grand final, Isaac Chris Peacock received 0 points from both the jury and the televote. The jury and public scores were then combined. Avidaya finished with 647 points and won the 2026 contest. The grand final watch party was held in Guam. The semi-final watch parties were held in Brisbane, Australia. The winner then became the planned host of the following edition. Avidaya will therefore host the 2027 YouTuber voting contest. The core idea. Despite all of these different stages and rules, the basic idea behind the YouTuber voting contest remains straightforward. YouTubers enter videos. Those videos compete against one another. Some contestants receive automatic qualification. The remaining contestants are placed into semifinals through a draw. The contestants attempt to qualify. The successful contestants reach the grand final. The automatic qualifiers join them. The jury ranks the contestants. The public votes for the contestants. The results are combined. The highest scoring contestant wins. That is the entire foundation of the YouTuber voting contest.